She was in an agony of terror for Vronsky, but a still greater agony was the never-ceasing, as it seemed to her, stream of her husband's shrill voice with its familiar intonations. I'm a wicked woman, a lost woman, she thought, but I don't like lying, I can't endure falsehood, while us for him her husband, it's the breath of his life falsehood. He knows all about it, he sees it all. What does he care if he can talk so calmly? If he were to kill me, if he were to kill Vronsky, I might respect him. No, all he wants is falsehood and propriety, Anna said to herself, not considering exactly what it was she wanted of her husband, and how she would have liked to see him behave. She did not understand either that Alexei Alexandrovich's peculiar loquacity that day, so exasperating to her, was merely the expression of his inward distress and uneasiness. As a child that has been hurt skips about, putting all his muscles into movement to drown the pain, in the same way Alexei Alexandrovich needed mental exercise to drown the thoughts of his wife that in her presence and in Vronsky's, and with the continual iteration of his name, would force themselves on his attention. And it was as natural for him to talk well and cleverly, as it is natural for a child to skip about. He was saying, danger in the races of officers, of cavalrymen, is an essential element in the race. If England can point to the most brilliant feats of cavalry in military history, it is simply owing to the fact that she has historically developed this force both in beasts and in men. Sport has, in my opinion, a great value, and as is always the case, we see nothing but what is most superficial. It's not superficial, said Princess Tverskaya. One of the officers, they say, has broken 2 ribs. Alexei Alexandrovich smiled his smile, which uncovered his teeth, but revealed nothing more. We'll admit, Princess, that's not superficial, he said, but internal. But that's not the point, and he turned again to the general with whom he was talking seriously. We mustn't forget that those who are taking part in the race are military men, who have chosen that career, and one must allow that every calling has its disagreeable side. It forms an integral part of the duties of an officer. Low sports, such as prize fighting or Spanish bullfights, are a sign of barbarity. But specialized trials of skill are a sign of development. "No, I shan't come another time, it's too upsetting," said Princess Betsy. "Isn't it, Anna?" "It is upsetting, but one can't tear oneself away," said another lady. "If I'd been a Roman woman I should never have missed a single circus." Anna said nothing, and keeping her opera glass up, gazed always at the same spot. At that moment a tall general walked through the pavilion. Breaking off what he was saying, Alexei Alexandrovich got up hurriedly, though with dignity, and bowed low to the general. "You're not racing?" the officer asked, chaffing him. "My race is a harder one," Alexei Alexandrovich responded deferentially. And though the answer meant nothing, the general looked as though he had heard a witty remark from a witty man, and fully relished _la pointe de la sauce _. "There are two aspects," Alexei Alexandrovich resumed, "those who take part and those who look on, and love for such spectacles is an unmistakable proof of a low degree of development in the spectator, I admit, but Princess, Bets," sounded Stepan Arkadyevitch's voice from below, addressing Betsy. "Who's your favorite?" "Anna and I are for Kozlovlev," replied Betsy. "I'm for Vronsky." "A pair of gloves?" "Done. But it is a pretty sight, isn't it?" Alexei Alexandrovich paused while there was talking about him, but he began again directly. "I admit that manly sports do not," he was continuing. But at that moment the racers started, and all conversation ceased. Alexei Alexandrovich too was silent, and everyone stood up and turned towards the stream. Alexei Alexandrovich took no interest in the race, and so he did not watch the racers, but fell listlessly to scanning the spectators with his weary eyes. His eyes rested upon Anna. Her face was white and set. She was obviously seeing nothing and no one but one man. Her hand had convulsively clutched her fan, and she held her breath. He looked at her and hastily turned away, scrutinizing other faces. "But here's this lady too, and others very much moved as well, it's very natural," Alexei Alexandrovich told himself. He tried not to look at her, but unconsciously his eyes were drawn to her. He examined that face again, trying not to read what was so plainly written on it, and against his own will, with horror read on it what he did not want to know. The first fall, Kozlov's, at the stream, agitated everyone, but Alexey Alexandrovitch saw distinctly on Anna's pale, triumphant face that the man she was watching had not fallen. When, after Mahotin and Vronsky had cleared the worst barrier, the next officer had been thrown straight on his head at it and fatally injured, and a shudder of horror passed over the whole public, Alexey Alexandrovitch saw that Anna did not even notice it, and had some difficulty in realizing what they were talking of about her. But more and more often, and with greater persistence, he watched her. Anna, wholly engrossed as she was with the race, became aware of her husband's cold eyes fixed upon her from one side. She glanced round for an instant, looked inquiringly at him, and with a slight frown turned away again. "Ah, I don't care," she seemed to say to him, and she did not once glance at him again. The race was an unlucky one, and of the 17 officers who rode in it more than half were thrown and hurt. Towards the end of the race everyone was in a state of agitation, which was intensified by the fact that the Tsar was displeased. Chapter 29. Everyone was loudly expressing disapprobation, everyone was repeating a phrase someone had uttered: "The lions and gladiators will be the next thing," and everyone was feeling horrified, so that when Vronsky fell to the ground, and Anna moaned aloud, there was nothing very out of the way in it. But afterwards a change came over Anna's face which really was beyond decorum. She utterly lost her head.